The good side of so much citizen participation is that you can do experiments that then go across the world. I mean, this food thing, it was laughed at so much at the beginning. It's all over the country now.
This is about the democratic process at work. It's a story of what can happen when everyday citizens share a simple dream and work together to change minds. One neighbor, one politician, one piece of legislation at a time. I uncovered this process when I found a document called the Berkeley Food Policy that had been adopted by the Board of Education in 1999. It laid out all the major goals and strategies that would become the backbone of the Berkeley School Lunch Initiative. The process began in 1997 when one angry parent challenged the school superintendent to completely overhaul the Berkeley school lunch program.
Well, of course, his anger was about the food. The anger was about his children getting what he considered to be terrible food. And so he had a legitimate anger that he was expressing. He said, look at this menu. And it was all, he was right. It was cheese dogs, it was corn dogs, it was just one bad thing after another. And he said, how can you ask kids to eat this?
I had never been an activist. I'd been in a few peace marches now and then, but it grabbed my interest and grabbed my passion because, this is about our kids. This is about healthy kids having the energy to learn all morning long and keep learning in the afternoon after they've had a decent lunch.
So what we were trying to do was nudge the district and our food services away from the old model towards something new, which we hadn't entirely invented yet. We knew we wanted to get fresh, organic, nutritious food into our food services, but without the distribution, without the suppliers, how were we going to do that?
Most of the people who came were interested in one issue. There was someone who wore a t-shirt that said, "Friends don't let friends eat meat." And there were the people who were the anti-bovine growth hormone people and the waste management and recycling zealots. And you took notes of all the issues. And at the end, a group of people who were one note, one issue, pretty angry people, became joint authors of a 10-point school food policy, which turned out to be the first one in the entire nation.
Those are some of the folks who organized the first food committee back in 1997. They harnessed their energy, passion, and vision in this draft of Berkeley's first food policy. Then, in 1999, people on the committee went out to the schools to figure out where the problems were and what needed to get done. The food service budget was a mess. The director at the time blocked every suggestion they came up with. The lunch menus were awful, and there were no kitchens to cook in at all. They disappeared in the 1980s.
But when we first went in and did the inventory,
Right.
I mean, there were no knobs on the stoves. There was one spoon. I mean, there was
That's
nothing.
Right. And then, the culture that we inherited was a group of people who worked in the school district and worked in food service and had worked there for a long time and were used to a certain pattern
Right.
where they would heat things or cool things off, and they weren't used to being creative. The other thing is that space is a big problem, because if you say we want to start a garden, people say, well, that means you're going to take out play space, or you're going to take out some other
The
things
baseball diamond.
or something, and so it was not easy.
The food policy was filled with big goals and clear strategies, but the Berkeley citizen activists had to learn how to make them real. In 2000, they campaigned to include kitchens in a city bond measure for school facilities. The voters approved, and now the money was there. But changing minds was tougher than they thought. especially the new chief, Michelle Lawrence.
As I started as a superintendent and reviewing policies, I came across this very ambitious food and nutrition policy. And frankly, one I thought, these guys are mad. What are they doing here? They can't be doing this.
When she first came here, she thought this was Berkeley foo-foo. And I had a couple of very contentious meetings with her.
This had a policy name to it, but it wasn't implementable. There wasn't a way that I could immediately say, well, I'm going to hold anybody accountable for implementing this or even violating it.
After, I think it was her first year, there was a kid over the summer who was a middle school student at Longfellow who died of complications related to diabetes. And she was shocked by that. So she went to Children's Hospital to talk to their diabetes people. And they said, look, it's about nutrition, it's about what we feed our kids.
And I think the death plus the statistics made the circumstances and my obligation much more apparent. And so the idea of my now pulling out this food policy that at one point in time I thought seemed to me to be nonsense made much more sense in context.
This was a big turning point. Now the political will was in place. They had real dollars to build a central kitchen, and all Berkeley schools had cooking and gardening classes. Yet, it still took another 2 years of hard work and organizing. By 2005, Alice Waters and the Chez Panisse Foundation offered to fund the salary of one of the few people in the country equipped to turn the food policy words into action, Chef Ann Cooper, the lunch lady.
When I got here, there was 5 items on the menu. Chicken nuggets, grilled cheese sandwiches, extremo burritos, corn dogs, and pizza pockets. We went from there to no trans fats, no high fructose corn syrup, salad bars every school, every day, all whole grains, organic milk at lunch, no chocolate milk, no desserts, and kids eat the food. So I think that's success.
People would put you down and say it's not possible. You're just too idealistic. What do you think? Do you think our kids can eat expensive organic food? Don't be ridiculous, people. I got a lot of that in the beginning.
I don't think anybody in food services would want to return to the old days of opening up cans and serving frozen food anymore. I can't imagine anybody would want to do that anymore.
Even the British government adopted a food policy for all the schools in England and Scotland and Wales. And there's a footnote in their food policy that says that they want to thank the Berkeley Unified School District for the inspiration for their food policy.
People say, how can we do this? They ought to figure out, okay, how can we deal with these issues one by one? What about nutrition? How can we get better food? How can we teach work with the teachers to start teaching and bringing it into our culture? How can we make sure that we get the facilities we need? The end goal is to have it all, but you need to make progress where you can.
North Pole, South Pole. So make my bridge, knife goes on, North Pole, South Pole, I cut it in half. Okay.
In 2009, First Lady Michelle Obama unveiled a kitchen garden on the White House lawn. She talked about planting and eating vegetables to combat obesity, and she said no child in America should go hungry. Since the food policy was adopted more than 10 years ago, these Berkeley citizen activists went from unrealistic dreamers to national proponents of healthy school food. And in that decade, they changed the basic definition of what it means when we say children should never be hungry in school again.